Welcome to Ordinary People Doing Extraordinary Things, the podcast show. I am your host, Carrie Roberts. And today, my extraordinary guest is Mr. Jeffrey Morse. He is a stroke and aneurysm survivor, but he is also a motivational speaker and the author of his new book called Finding Forward, You Have the Will Within. So, welcome, Jeffrey. Excited to have you here today.
Carrie, it's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes. So before we get into, your story, the not so great side and then the growth, I want to start pre of that. You talk a lot in your book about how, you were very athletic, kind of determined. Can you talk about, a little bit about your personality and your mindset before all of this happened? Who were you? What was that like?
Well, I've always been a giving person. If we're looking at the couple of years before all this was going on, I just finished working with one airline that went under in 2008 with the economic downturn, and I decided to go back to college and work on another degree. And I was having fun in my life. I was ready for a little time off that I hadn't had in a while. I was ready to go do a little traveling. Working out was always important to me, as well as scuba diving with my friends. So life was pretty good, as always. My whole life has been, if I wasn't traveling, I was meeting people, and I've always enjoyed meeting people. I've always felt like meeting new people has made me a better person. So I've always enjoyed that part of growing up, giving back as well. So anytime I had an opportunity to help somebody, those were the things that made me feel good. That's where I would find my passion and drive and my fuel. Those were the things that kept me happy when I got to interact with others and go and help somebody. So I felt like when this thing happened to me, there were so many things, so many positive things that happened throughout my life that maybe was preparing me for this thing. So I didn't go into it, although it was very traumatic and tragic. I had so many good things in my life that I was very grateful for. And once this thing happened to me, it felt really good that I could look back on all that and know that, hey, my life's not over and I do have things to offer as I go forward. I just needed to find them.
Yeah, no, I can resonate with what you said, just of who you are as a person in general. And, I think when we all go through various difficult things in our life, sometimes it can feel like it's just us. And when we
Yeah.
read other stories, whether it's someone who's experienced something similar or even just difficult, there is an element of I'm not alone in this. And I think that that's a huge piece of all of this. I want to start a little bit from, when this first happened. This started with kind of this intense headache. And I think when people, hear stories like this, or they're on Google and they're searching things, and they're saying, okay, well, I have a headache, is this wrong? Can you talk a little bit about how you were feeling at that time, kind of what seemed different or unique to you, maybe before all of this happened?
Sure. So through my life, I've had, as everybody, our headaches. The occasional migraine, and maybe I had a migraine because I was dehydrated. I might have been in the Middle East and I was dehydrated. But when this happened, what was different about it was the headache began on June 9th, and it didn't go away the next day. It was a lingering headache, and it went on for about 10 days. And about the 19th of June, it turned into a migraine. And all of a sudden, I started noticing with the migraine, well, that's not going away either. And I'm equally noticing that, wow, this migraine is a little more intense than anything I've dealt with in the past. And I thought it had something to do with a situation I had happened back in May with a scuba diving incident where I got something called barotrauma, and I was seeing an ear, nose, and throat doctor. So I was attributing all of this to the barotrauma in my ears. And I thought, well, hey, I've got an appointment with him on June 29th. I'll go see him and see what's going on. However, I kept noticing the migraine was getting worse, and I was starting to have trouble with light. I was becoming photophobic, and I couldn't handle light anymore. So by the time the doctor's appointment came around, I was anxious to see him. And as soon as he walked in the room and I told him what was going on, he immediately cut me off and said, "Hey, I don't deal with migraines. Go see your family doctor. The appointment's over." And he walked right out of the room. So I called my family doctor, got an appointment the following morning. And lo and behold, when I walk in to see him, he checks my vitals. I told him what was going on. He was furious with the ear, nose, and throat doctor. But in looking at me, he could tell what was going on. And he said, "I need you to lay here in this room. I'm going to turn the lights off for you. And I'm calling the paramedics to take you to the hospital." And at that point, I thought, something serious must be going on, but I can't imagine what. I'm healthy. Uh, I'm eating right. My weight's right. I feel very energetic. I'm doing all the right things. And lo and behold, I get to the hospital and find out, hey, you've got an aneurysm and a dissected artery. And I thought, no way. I'm 49 years old. I'm as healthy as can be. No way. And sure enough, here's where I am.
Mm. Yeah, and I think, you kind of talk through the book in detail of how you're feeling and kind of what happens, and they do this obviously surgery that needs to be done right away. And you talk about waking up after the surgery and feeling this awareness that you can't feel your body, and you kind of notice something's wrong, and the doctor says, you are paralyzed, you probably won't walk, but you have made your mind up, no, I am going to. Can you talk about that moment of waking up and that shift in mindset that says, no, I'm going to figure this out? Whereas maybe a lot of people would be really depressed, or maybe was there a combination of both of those things happening?
Well, waking up and you're coming out of this surgery that you were told you had less than a 25% chance of surviving. And here I am, thank God I'm awake, and I'm trying to get my body to move. I'm sending signals from my brain, hey, wiggle your toes so you know they're there. And the communication is stopping at the base of my skull. It's not going anywhere. And as I'm frantically trying to move my body, it's not there. And I'm starting to realize something's wrong. I can't feel my body. I can't move. And the doctor comes in and starts breaking the news to me. And the first thing that happens with something like that is claustrophobia sets in, because you can't move your body and you can't get up and walk away from this thing. The best way I could describe it, and I describe it in the book, is how many times have you woken up in your life in the middle of the night and you slept on your arm wrong, and you wake up because your arm fell asleep. There's no circulation going through it. And when that happens, you're so alarmed by it that you sit up in bed, you turn the lights on. And why are you turning on the lights? So you can see that arm, that it's still there attached to you. And you're shaking it frantically because it's so disturbing that you can't feel this appendage. And you keep trying to shake it until your awareness, the blood flow, is back. And you realize, okay, I've got an arm again. Now imagine that whole feeling over your entire body, only you can't shake, you can't sit up, you can't shake your body, and this isn't going away. So it's very disturbing, very alarming in the beginning. And what I was finding immediately was my survival instinct was kicking in. And some of that's attributed to what I went through in the Air Force with my SEER training, my survival school training. So I felt that kicking into me. I felt that that other Jeff kicking in, if you will. And around this time, the doctor came in and he's telling me, hey, the good news is you survived the surgery. We got everything fixed, but it appears you had a stroke on your spinal cord and you're more than likely never going to walk again. And what kicked in there was, this is your opinion. You're not in my body. This is your prognosis, but how do you really know? You don't know. I don't know. But I'm not going to lean towards the negative side of this. I'm going to lean towards the positive side of this. I'm going to approach this as, yes, I am going to walk again. And this is where leaps of faith were starting to enter my mind. I knew I had to start thinking differently. I needed to start thinking positively. What could I do to manifest that? Well, why don't I start making goals? And I started thinking, hey, there's no instruction book for paralysis. What do we do first, second, or third? And that's when it dawned on me, hey, if you can one day, why don't you journal all of this journey and write a book about it, and write it to other people going through their own traumas, whatever they might be, even if it's what I went through, but write about it and tell people your life's not over. And what I started finding from that was, once they moved me over to the rehab center, one of the other buildings in the complex, they moved me into a room with a gentleman that lost a leg below the knee because of his diabetes. And he'd given up. And the doctors, nurses, his mom couldn't convince him to jump back in the game of life. And every night, neither one of us could sleep. So I would start talking to him and I would tell him, look, your life's not over. All you need is a prosthetic leg. You're back in the game. Go live your life. And little by little, that was having a positive effect on him. And that's when I started realizing to myself, hey, your life's not over. Okay, you're paralyzed, but you still have something to offer others. And I thought, if that leap of faith could make its way into me, what else could? And those were the very important things. And I felt very grateful that I could have that mindfulness and be positive and, uh, grasp that and hold on to it in my head. I said to myself, okay, your body doesn't work, but your brain still works. You can still see, you can hear, you can talk to people. Focus on what does work. Don't focus on what doesn't work. So those were the little building blocks that I had for myself. And it was very important that I keep it positive. Anytime people would come see me, I could see the trauma on their faces, that I'm laying there and I'm paralyzed. So what can I do to make them feel better? Tell them a story and get them laughing. And if I can get you laughing, then maybe you'll come back and see me a little more. And I can tell another story and get you laughing about that. And get your mind off of my paralysis and let you see, hey, I'm still alive. I'm still in here. I'm not down and I'm not out. So those were the places I kept going as I was going through this. And it was very important to me. I didn't do it because I had to do it. I did it because I wanted to do it.
Yes, and I read that in your book, and I wanted to read another line, kind of what you just said, where you said, "Let awareness in, don't let trauma win." I was still
Yes.
overcome by the emotional side of healing. It clearly outweighed the physical. I'm not going to say that a positive attitude removes the trauma. I am saying try a new way to look beyond the trauma. Allow yourself to open up to feeling good again. And you do talk about, throughout this book again, wanting to have that mindset. And I think, not just in this situation, as you said, this book, I think, is not only for people that maybe have been through something similar as you, but just trauma in general. You know, people do, they polarize. Either this is
Oh,
it,
yeah.
it's over, or I'm going to go here. And I know I've learned throughout my years, emotions are gray. They're not black and white. You might feel a mix of both of those things. You might feel one the other day. How did you kind of, continue to push yourself to that more positive mindset and gratitude when maybe you had the days that were a little bit more challenging, or for that young man that you just said was feeling the same way?
Well, we were both the same age, and
Okay.
um, he he ended up not making it.
Mm.
And um, anytime I was having a not so good day, I would think about him. I still think about him to this day. I thought about him while I wrote the book. One of the reasons I wrote it was because I wanted to talk about him, um, and how important it is not to give up. And I feel bad to this day that he did. So it was very important for me to talk about these things. I went into this thinking it was 80% physical and 20% psychological. And I found in the midst of it that it was actually the opposite. And the other things that I was finding, to go back to your question, um, I started realizing, as much as I was um, putting 100% into my alternative therapies, that uh, I had to figure out that my life isn't just therapy, that I needed to be able to go do things for myself when I could. Even in the days when I was still in the wheelchair and I was back home, if I could just wheel myself over to a door, um, pulling myself with my foot and trying to open the door so I could just sit and look out at the sky with nothing in between me and say, hey, I made it. I survived. This is going to take a little while to get something back, but I'm okay with that. This is my new job to get there. So there were so many things that I could find to keep the negative away from me. If it wasn't talking to other people or reconnecting with old friends, it was meeting new people along the way and talking to them about what they do each day or their trauma. Um, it was important to me to listen. So there were so many things that could pull me in the other direction, and I was bound and determined not to let that happen. Every day I could do something, that was a win, even if it was small or nothing at all. I'm still alive, and that's the most important piece of all. So work from there, and don't forget how to smile. That's one other piece of this. You go into trauma and you don't realize, oh my God, I forgot how to smile. Figure out how to make that work again. And having people in your life helps you get there.
No, I mean, beautifully said. Like I said, beautifully written. I congratulate you on just your work, the work ethic of putting this in, whether, like you said, it was journaling or the physical things you've done. Um, I think it's funny because when we think about, especially in this day and age with social media and everyone kind of showing their best self, or what they think is their best self, and how they look and what they have, really what matters is this consistent work that's put in to get to the next place in life, whatever that is for you personally. So again, I congratulate you on that, because that's a lot of great effort that you've done and
Thank you.
continue to do. Um, can you talk a little bit too about the physical component? Because you can walk now. Are there certain limitations? Do you have to use a wheelchair? Where are you at now? And how long did it take to get there physically?
Well, this summer will be 10 years,
Mhm.
and I still use a cane from time to time. I still have uh, the issues from where the stroke occurred. So I have um, delayed mobility, if you will, on the right side. I'm still working on that. I can walk, I can go on a hike, I can drive my car, I can stand up in a classroom and teach. I can still work out, and I do. So there's a lot of things I can do. Some things took a little more time than others, figuring out how to ride a bike again, those little things. But I do things with caution. Can I still go scuba diving? Absolutely. When I was figuring out how to do all that again when my body barely moved, I still made that happen. Went out with my dive buddy Charlie Brown, and we went out on a dive one day just so we could. And while we were diving, my right side wasn't keeping up with my left, and suddenly I looked like a World War II fighter plane that just got shot out of the sky, and I rolled over into this death roll and went in head first into the bottom, and the bottom just exploded everywhere. And he couldn't see me anymore in the silt, but he could hear me laughing down there. He could see my fins kicking after a little while, and I could hear him laughing. Of course, I can't move, but I didn't care. All that mattered was I was having fun. We were both having fun. And that's, one of those places where you got to let go. You got to tell yourself, hey, I'm okay. Isn't this great? I'm having a great time here. I'm stuck in the mud upside down underwater. And I'm not going anywhere until he pulls me out, but I'm having fun doing it. Just like when I went to Nepal, and I talk about that in the book. I just wanted to go someplace I'd never been and do a new adventure and have new memories that I could fall back on instead of things before all of this. Now I have some new things after it happened. I set myself up for all these adrenaline rushing things to go do. And I told myself, you know what? If you're only able to do half of them, great. At least you tried. In my case, I managed to do all of them, and I was happy as a lark to go do it. But I had a great time, and I've really met so many wonderful people along the way. That was enlightenment, and one of the reasons I went. So yeah, there's so many reasons to go on with your life. And, when you put in all this hard work and then you get to go do something fun, that fun thing you're getting to go do is because of all the hard work you put in. So put in the work.
Yes.
And don't forget how to live.
I love it. I think, again, it's like, sometimes we get, no matter what issue we have, we get so stuck in our own way. And
Yeah.
just being able to, like you said, it's been 10 years, which when you think about, I'm sure it probably felt like an eternity in some cases where it's funny. You said, you're like, oh, learning how to do little things like riding a bike. And I'm like, wait, didn't you learn how to walk again?
Yeah.
Like that's a bigger little thing. So seeing that progression, have you kept in touch with, that doctor that did that surgery? Have you been to, like, when you think about medicine and you think about, everything that's happened, where do you think the difference between where, the surgery / the physical therapy helped versus the mindset? Like, are you seeing that, wow, there's so much more in mindset and there's a lot of things that can kind of transcend medicine sometimes?
I haven't seen the doctor in 9 years, that particular doctor. Some people ask me sometimes, do you fault him for any of this? And I tell them, no, absolutely not. The guy saved my life. I wouldn't be here today without him. He told me up front I had less than a 25% chance of surviving the surgery. He was working right next to my spinal cord from inside the artery. He went in through my groin and all the way up through my body to work on this artery. So I knew it was a chance going in, but I don't fault him for it. Where I find things get a little interesting with the medical community is we have to realize we have to be our own advocate through these things, and you need to do your research. They're there for a reason, to help us, but you need to do your own homework. You need to realize that, hey, surgeries are a business, and if you need it, then you need it. If you don't need it, then do your homework, because once they do the surgery, you can't undo it. So be careful with those things. Other things that I found along the way were, I was being given medicine that had side effects, and the side effects were hindering my progress. And anytime I brought that up to the physical therapy doctor, for instance, um, I was being told, hey, the side effects don't do that. And I brought out sheets of paper that I printed and said, well, here's the side effects and here's my problem. And the reason I was bringing it up was I was being offered surgeries I didn't need.
Mhm.
Oh, hey, we can, give you Botox injections in your hamstrings on your right leg. I don't need that. I need the muscle rigidity from the medication to go away. So I wound up, and I'm not advocating any of this to anybody, but I took things into my own control here, and I weaned myself off these things I didn't need. And lo and behold, what did I find with it? And this is just me, but all of a sudden these side effects were going away and
Mhm.
I was progressing all over again. But go to your doctor to do those things. That's important. So have those conversations, but do your homework and definitely be your own advocate through everything. Those are little wins for you, and those wins are very important. Those are the things that help you once again see the positive side of things, because you're in control, they're not in control. So that's sometimes a difficult line that you're walking there. But how bad do you want what you want back? And you've got to weigh all of this. And for me, I had nothing better to do than do this homework. Just like I needed to learn how to speak um, about anatomy. If I'm going to have conversations with them, then I need to be able to speak their language. So those things were all important. And I had no other time than this to do all this while I was recovering year after year after year.
No, I agree. I think, I always say, I used to work in the health and fitness on the like personal training side. And I used to always say the same thing, be your own advocate, because medical professionals are people too.
Yeah,
And they have opinions, but it doesn't always mean it's right. And you want to listen to certain things, but if it doesn't feel right, something feels off, like you said, get a second opinion, do your
absolutely.
research. Really important. So I definitely resonate with that it's important to advocate for yourself. Again, through this book, you kind of talk about your whole journey, a lot of kind of tips as well. If people want to get the book or they want to learn more about anything we spoke about, where is the best place to do that?
You can find the book on Amazon. You can also find it on Barnes and Noble and at Target. And for whoever wants to reach out, you can reach me on my website, Jeffrey, Jeffrey, Morse, Morse.com. You can reach me on Facebook, um, Jeffrey A. Morse again, or finding_forward. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and I love hearing from people. I talk to so many people each day, and I really look forward to that and hearing their stories. One of the things that I've found with all of this, especially over the last 2 years, when we're talking about paralysis, one of the things I found is the parallels of paralysis, not just the paralysis I went through, but the paralysis I see the world going through with the pandemic. People losing sight of what it's like to be social because
Mhm.
they've been removed from it for so long. And that's where I feel good about the book that I wrote, because I wrote that for hope and inspiration. And it seems like this is a real good time to have a book like this out there to say, trauma isn't something you weigh. Trauma is trauma. It doesn't matter what kind it is, to what degree it is, it's trauma. And we have to be able to find our way through it, no matter what it is. And finding our way through is something we have to work on. We have to practice. Where I was learning how to walk again for the second time in my life, that's not something you do overnight. When you were a baby and you started to learn how to walk, did you figure it out in one time standing and off you go. No, you got it back over practice, practice. So the same thing holds true here with what we're all going through with the pandemic and finding our lives again. We have to practice that, being social again and feeling good around others and knowing what it's like to feel good to be outside. Or hey, what was I talking about a few minutes ago with smiling? We need to figure that thing out too. Little steps. So be patient with yourself and figure out what it is to be alive and be outside and rediscovering your life. We only get to do this thing once, so live it and enjoy it.
Again, beautifully said. And the last question I ask all of my guests, Jeffrey, is what is one word or quote or mantra that you try to live by every single day?
Uh, Thanking everybody around me, thanking caregivers, thanking therapists. Those are the things that are important to me, to look people in the eye and say, thank you. Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for helping me. Thank you for sticking by me through all of this. That's important. People that are helping you, um, especially therapists, caregivers, they don't get to hear those things all the time. And I can't think of a better time than now to be doing things like that. Thank people in your lives, even if it's a family member, friends, coworkers. Take a moment to do that, to do it every day. Be thankful, be grateful for your life, and be thankful for the people in your life.
I'm so glad you were on this show and to connect again. I want to congratulate you again for just the hard work, the effort, the mindset, not only for yourself, but now as you continue to help others. Just tremendous job to you and what you continue to do. So I thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to chatting again soon in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Carrie. It's such an honor and a privilege to be on your show. I'm so grateful. Thank you immensely. And I would love to come back.